Hey guys, I'm here with Andrew Fredrickson, who is the producer from Big Huge Games for Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. Now, how's it going?
Going pretty darn good. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm all right. I've been playing your game. It's pretty cool. There's some magical shit in there. I dig it.
Just a little.
Yeah. You kind of got like a super group working on this. You've got R.A. Salvatore, the fantasy writer. You've got Todd McFarlane, the famous comic artist, and then you've got Ken Ralston, who is the lead designer for 2 Elder Scrolls games. And if that wasn't enough, you've got a baseball player involved in this too.
We do.
Why don't you guys are making a video game? You can't even fight. You can't fight crime or something. This is.
We're working on that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting masks in next week.
So the story with Amalur is it's a giant epic open world RPG, kind of hack and slash action, but with a lot of RPG elements and crafting and stuff like that. The big thing is Destinies. What's the story with the Destinies? How does that work? And Fate. There's something about Fate too. Yeah,
Fate is a very, very real force in Amalur. Everyone and everything has a fate. What will happen to it? And there are these people called Fate Weavers who can actually read the fate and tell you what's going to happen to you in your life or what's going to happen to the world. And the only exception to that is the player, the hero that you get to be. Oh. You awaken from the dead. That's right, you are formerly dead. And you basically define that you are outside of fate. You are the only person who has the ability to go around and change fate or change the destinies. And so part of that is, leads right into Destinies, which is our answer to a class system. You basically get to decide what you want to be, and that's, you decide that by investing your skills and your abilities into all the different things different options and different choices. And that's going to unlock the Destinies, which are sort of something you can equip. You can swap and change to be a rogue, a fighter rogue, or a mage based on how you've built your abilities and make that decision and change it on the fly.
And there are 3 main skill trees, right? There's
yes.
might, finesse, and
sorcery.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when we were playing, actually, my producer stole the controller from me and decided to change all the Destinies. And I think he went to some booth or something and paid money to just reassign all of his skill points.
That's one of the other abilities that Fate Weavers have, because Fate Weavers can read the destiny of those who are fated, but because you are unfated, they offer you the unique service of respeccing your character. So you can go in there and just unbind your destiny, get all of your points back, and if you found a hammer and you've been a mage and you're like, I totally need to rock this hammer, you go in there, unbind, reinvest everything, and then it's hammer time.
This is true. The problem is, though, if you reassign things, then suddenly some of the stuff you have in your inventory might not work with what you have going on.
That's absolutely true. So it is a decision that you need to make, but fortunately,
choose your destiny wisely.
Yeah, I chose mine wrong.
Yeah. We found it so that we couldn't figure out how to work pants anymore, so we had to run around with no pants and a large hammer. So that's all like the very the metaphysical approach to role playing. What about the crafting system? What's going on in that area?
Okay, so we've got 3 different crafting systems. We've got alchemy, where you can make potions that do all kinds of things, from create health and mana potions, but you can also do ones that are going to increase your evasion, increase your fire damage, and all of those are created by finding reagents throughout the world that all have a different essence to them, and you can sort of read that essence and make logical guesses as a player to decide, I want to make a fire potion that increases my damage. So I find the right essences, mix those together, and now I've got a fire damage potion.
There you go.
Blacksmithing, you can break down all the weapons that you find, or even just buy components and build the weapon that you want. So if you find a iron longsword and you want an iron 2-handed sword, you just break it down, take that blade, and make a bigger sword. And sage crafting is one that allows you to combine gems and socket them into the weapons and armor that you have to, add and increase the effects that they're already there.
Okay, cool. One big question a lot of people had was guilds, and in this they're factions, right?
Yeah, we have 5 factions in the game.
Okay, what are they?
So we've got the Travelers, the House of Ballads, the House of Sorrows, the Scholia Arcana, and the Warsworn.
You get an A for the day.
Thank you.
And so those all have different quests associated with them and stuff like that?
Yes, every faction is independent. You're never going to have to choose, do I want to do this faction or that faction? They're not opposed with each other. They have their own goals and requirements within the world. Within each faction, you will make decisions about, who you want to save, who you want to ally with, or how you want to solve that faction's problems. but it is in and of itself its own experience that, you know, you're not going to get cut out of one faction because you chose a different one.
How many side missions are there in this? There's a few.
I think we're at over 300 quests in this game.
Okay, so this is going to keep you busy for a while.
Yeah, at least 10 minutes.
And you're not ready to talk about how long the main story is yet, exactly, or we're tiptoeing around that subject still?
No, I can talk about
how long is it? How
You're going to
big is
easily have over 100 hours of gameplay if you choose to explore everything, and probably more than that if you're taking the time to really find all the lore that's there, and you can find 100 plus hours easily.
Okay. And the game itself, the space of Amalur, it's there's different regions, right?
Yes.
And they're broken up. It's an open world, and you can walk from one to the other. But there are sort of different countries. Would you say?
They're not quite countries, but they're different. You know, they're different themes to the areas that we call them biomes. But it's basically, you know, you'll find Dalantarth in the west, which is our wooded, sort of dark fairy tale wooded country. Just to the east of that, you can either find the plains of Arethel, which is sort of I would call it almost like a savanna plains with some tall grasses and some big trees, but it's very open and rolling. And then you have the Datir to the south, which is your dry desert land.
Yeah, I saw that because I started out and I was like, oh, hey, you know, magical trees and glowing mushrooms and stuff in a fantasy game, go figure. And then I fast traveled and all of a sudden it was like cactus country and there's like mining camps and, you know, wolves chasing me, and it was a little bit, you know, Wile E. Coyote for a second. But I like that. It's a real ecosystem you get going on.
Every one of those is going to feel very different. And even within those biomes, we have different narrative spaces, and they all have their own story. And sometimes that story is a narrative story, and sometimes that story is just, you know, this is an area where a lot of weather things happened, or, you know, the geological formation forms such that, you know, not only is there a ground level where you can walk around, but there's like very high plateaus, and you can cross these big bridges over canyons to get to the other layers on top.
Now, the different areas, are they tied at all to difficulty? Are you limited in where you can go based on what level you are?
You're not limited where you can go by your level, but if you try to go to the wrong place and you're at the low level, it's going to be a challenge. So, you know, the enemies will scale to a degree, but every space, every region has a band in which you'll find that, you know, if you go back to something in the very early game, when you're, you know, way late in the game, it's going to be easy. But that doesn't mean that you're limited from running to the end of the game, even at the early parts. So
there you go.
There's only one little gate in there, and that's part of the main quest that everyone's going to experience.
Okay, cool. Now, the combat system is one thing that I was sort of scratching my head about when I read about it, but when I actually jumped in and got my hands on it, it's entirely different. Yeah. How it works is you've got the right trigger, which brings up your spell menu.
Your abilities.
Your abilities. And each of the face buttons activates a different one of those. And then the two of the face buttons act as primary and secondary attacks, right? Okay. And then there's the fate, or the reckoning. The reckoning. That's it. There's all these words. Reckoning. Mode. How does what is that exactly for the people who have not witnessed its awesomeness?
As you change the fate of all the different NPCs and monsters that you encounter throughout the world, maybe they were supposed to live a little longer, and you came along and decided to distribute your broadsword, and that earned you, you know, fate energy by changing the fate of the world. So you've sort of gathered that and collected that fate energy through each kill, through each combo, and, you know, just the different chains that you're going to perform. You'll gather more and more fate energy. When you fill up your fate meter, you can unleash Reckoning mode by holding down the two triggers, which starts off with a big epic, you know, boom down on the ground, and you'll get increased damage for all your abilities and attacks. You get a time slowdown, and then instead of killing enemies, you're going to incapacitate them while you're in Reckoning mode, and that mode's going to, you know, slowly tick down. And the more enemies you can incapacitate, the better. Whichever one you pull up to when he's incapacitated, you can implement a fate shift kill, which is these really cool sync attacks where you use weapons made of pure fate energy to do very brutal and painful things to them.
God.
But you get bonus XP, so it's worth it.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, I was sort of nonplussed looking at it in videos, but once you jump in and get your hands on it, it's a fun combat system.
Absolutely. It's the best out there.
Yeah, I like it. Now, obviously, there are a lot of big open action world game RPG video game things and
on computers.
Many of them, indeed. What sets Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning aside from all those? Like, what makes it magical? What were you guys trying to do with it?
Well, one of the greatest things that we do is we do everything well, and all those other things that you want to do in those RPGs but you couldn't do, we're bringing that stuff to the table. So if you wanted to actually, be able to pull off combos, you in another game you may want to combine two things, but they don't really work out well the way you feel like they should. In Reckoning, you get a spell, you start to use it, and it's going to do what you want it to do. It's going to do what you expect it to do. And on top of that, all the stuff blends together well. No team ever designed or implemented anything in isolation. No one went into a room, made something, and sent it out 2 months later. Everything was worked on collaboratively and together. So our combat is informed by our narrative design. Our narrative design is informed by our level design, and across the board, everything goes 2 ways and 6 ways and around again, and everything integrates. And you don't see that in other games where it's like they might have a good system over here and a good system over there, but they don't really connect.
Yeah,
we connect.
Yeah, it feels like a very well-rounded experience, and it seems very polished and sturdy. And this is not even a finished build yet, is it?
No, not yet. We are not coming out until February 7th in North America.
And that hits 360, PS3, and PC, right?
Yeah, 360, PS3, and PC, and we'll be out February 7th here and February 10th in Europe.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for talking with me.
My pleasure.
And that's Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. Check it out, guys.